Welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in the illustrious studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. All right, folks, we've got a really good one this week. I know you guys are going to love it. If you have done anything in your life that required you to have focus, intentionality, self-discipline, hard work, this episode is going to resonate with you. I have a special guest. He's coming in from Zoom all the way in Kansas City, Kansas. His name is Mr. Jim Bramlett. He is a CEO. I'm going to break it all down for you right here. If I try to go off of memory, folks, y'all know this, I'm not going to remember stuff. I have trouble in that area, but I'm just going to talk straight to you. He has 2 novels he's written. One of them is The No Hassle King, is actually what he goes by. And the second one here is Unconventional Thinking of Dominant Companies. He is an executive. He is a professional speaker. And he is a motivator. And above all that, he's a coach. You guys are going to absolutely love it. Settle in. If there's areas in your life that you need to improve on, you are about to get some tips that you need to have as you move forward. So settle down for just a second. Get yourself comfy. We'll be right back after a quick word from my sponsors. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to have a quick second to let you guys know how much it means to me that you are my sponsor. SRP Studios, The Real Hernando, The Rhythm Section, Hardwick Heating, Cooling, and Air Quality, Estes Grading, Hodge Homes, Adair Honey Farm, Miss Hippie Eats, Phones R Us, Ross Sod Farms and Landscaping, Ivy Rain, Women's Clinic, Tonic POS by Tyler Young, and Coffee Central. Thank you guys so much for being a sponsor. If you'd like to be a sponsor, go to my website now, motivatecoachcamp.com, and click on the button. Thank you. All right, welcome back, guys. Here we are. We are with Mr. Jim Bramlett all the way in Kansas City, Kansas. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing well, Coach. I'm so excited to be part of your show because I'm passionate about what you do.
Thank you, sir. So your assistant, somebody found me online and reached out to me, and then you and I, we connected through a phone call, and I got to know a little bit about you. And so much of your story is something that I feel like that I'm on the same path of. You've got more years of experience. You've done a few things. You've written some books. I'm working on my first book as we speak. It's tough to get there sometimes when you have so many things happening in life. You got to dedicate, focus, lock in. But isn't that all a part of life anyways? So here's what I want to do for the listeners. Do me a favor. Catch us up. Tell me a little bit about where you're from, what family life was like growing up, and then we'll jump into how you got into the business world.
Sure. I grew up in little town in south central Missouri, a town called Rolla, Missouri. Had a university, a town about 15,000. Very much middle class, 3 siblings. Both my parents worked. My dad was a Navy veteran who became chief of police of Rolla, so I had to watch myself.
Yeah. Police kids are bad sometimes.
And, just started working at the age of 13 and, went to Catholic seminary for high school and then got out and had to pay my own way through college. And but I got it done and started into a business career. But as a senior in college, I had this crazy idea to start a business, and it was my first tough lesson, and it didn't work, and because it was all about me, and that's when I started really getting my education, was starting my first business. But I ultimately got into transportation and logistics, spent 42 years in that industry, started 7 companies over my career, 4 for myself, 3 for others. And, learned a lot. And basically my first 2 companies were total failures. That's when it started putting together, ultimately leading to what I think is a successful formula for any entrepreneur to understand. First, it's not about you, the entrepreneur. It's all about the customer. And the better you know about the customer and what I call the buyer psychology, the better you can match your offering to what it is we are looking for. We're all buyers. We may not be professional buyers, but we buy things every day. Well, what is it that makes us buy what we're buying and from whom? And so I started tapping into that and wrote my first book about 5 years ago. And that first book was all about, well, how did Amazon just blow past Walmart? How did Uber put the cab industry on its heels? And how did Netflix put Blockbuster totally out of business.
Yeah.
So I wrote the first book there. The second book, Stop the Hassle, was all about what every business should be doing to grow organically, and that is paying attention to what we buyers are looking for and beating your competition. And then 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to become a chair for Vistage. And Vistage is the world's leading business leader peer group organization. And so there's 45,000 members globally, probably 20,000 here in the U.S. And they break out into groups of somewhere between 12 and 18 leaders who don't compete against each other and form into a team. And that's where I started learning to be a coach. And I reflect back, Chris, that I wish I'd have known this 40 years ago. Because, leadership's hard.
It is.
It's a tough journey. Most leaders, in my opinion, get started because they have some subject matter expertise, or they've got some discipline, some skill, and they start a business because of that. But then all of a sudden they have people, and they, they may have never led people before, and it happened to me. It did. But now, in my older age and years, I've learned, and I've taken courses in it, that I think the very best leaders are coaches, but you got to learn how to be a coach. And so that's a very high level summary of my background.
You did a great job there. I'm going to unpack a few things because so many points along the way there is actually what started to build the foundation of who Jim was then and who Jim is now. And I think that is the beauty sometimes of having an opportunity to have a conversation with someone who has figured out some of the secrets to life, if you want to call it that. I like to think of it that way anyways. So whenever you came out of college, what was it that you had gotten your degree in?
That's a funny story. So this was in 1976. I got my degree in marketing. Okay. Well, guess what? Marketing has completely changed
a little bit
with the when the internet came out and digital marketing, and so I only remember that the class I remember is we learned how to do newspaper ads for grocery stores, and that's just, newspapers aren't even around anymore.
Right?
So it was a degree that I really didn't put to a lot of use. Other than general, knowledge of any course.
It gives you some foundational understanding maybe of how the business works, but in the end, the game's always changing. And I think that speaks to life itself. Things are always going to evolve. It's going to become either better, faster, quicker, smarter. I mean, look, we can look at AI right now, and we are in the midst of a revolutionary change as we know it, and it's happening. And whether or not you want to embrace it, it's coming. There's no stopping it. So it's how are you going to use it to your benefit for the things that you do? And so when you look at marketing itself, obviously it's changed drastically. It's continuing to change. But when you come from that point, you said you jumped into your first business. What was that? Because I want to talk about that failure moment and why this is important for entrepreneurs in general, but people in life, is the idea that the failure moment is the growth moment you may have been needing or looking for all along.
Yeah, so I went to college in Springfield, Missouri, and in Springfield, Missouri, there still is, but back in the day, there was a Chinese dish called cashew chicken, and there was a cashew chicken place almost on every block, very popular. It's just little fried chicken chunks with oyster gravy and over fried rice.
Sounds good.
And it's awesome. Excellent. Well, I grew up 100 miles down the road in Rolla. And I told my roommate, I said, hey, there's no cashew chicken place in Rolla. We should start one there. So popular here. Tell you what, let's start one. We'll hire a manager because we're in school. We're going to stay in school. We'll just collect the checks.
Sounds good.
And it sounded great, but it's not that simple. And it lasted about 6 months, and it didn't work. We didn't hire the right person. It was a carry-out was an old A&W root beer drive-through that we refurbished, and we didn't understand what the customer was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a combination of things, but immaturity, lack of knowledge, and it failed. And so that was a tough lesson.
Another podcast that myself and my producer Derek we put out. It's called Cannonballing Life. Now, I will tell you, it is just the shenanigans of life. It's a lot of nonsense stories, but there's so much true life fact behind it. So it's not in sense motivational as it is levity, but it's still there's so many life moments because the truth to being able to grow and go outside of your comfort zone is to cannonball. You got to just jump in, and if you jump in and you fail, then you need to be paying attention because there's going to be a lot of life lessons thrown your way. And if you throw the towel in, you're never going to grow, you're never going to move forward, and you're probably going to have repetitive behaviors because if failure or setbacks is the thing that deters you, you're going to become very safe in life. And safe, in my opinion, is really an overall failure because you're never going to go anywhere. So talk about that moment of failure when you see this ship sinking, we need to throw it overboard, we need to get out of here, and now how do you retool? Why did that not derail you? Because that's important. There's so many people right now, they're going to watch this episode and they're going to think to themselves, I'm doing it all wrong. There's no sense in me continuing. I need to try something completely different, but maybe they just need to learn a lesson.
Early in my career, I had a mentor who told me, before you can succeed, you must fail. Otherwise, you don't even know what success is.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the line, my mom had her own real estate business. My dad ultimately he left being chief police. He ran a gas station, and somewhere along the line, something developed in my soul or my brain that being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, or that is the kind of life that I want to live. And so I got out of school. I went to work, but ultimately, 5 years after getting out of school, I started my second business. I got into trucking and I said, hey, I know trucking. I'm going to start a trucking company. Even though I failed with the restaurant, that was because it was 100 miles away. We hired a manager and I didn't even really know the restaurant business. But boy, I know trucking. So I'm going to start a trucking company. And it failed. Well, why did it fail? Because I started a company all about me. I didn't know if there was a need. What are the customers missing, or what are shippers missing that they need? What can I deliver that would be special? I didn't think of any of that.
Yeah.
And you just, the cannonball, I love that. I have an expression that, tuition is high. All my failures, the few I've had, it's been a lot of tuition paid.
Yeah.
But as long as you learn
Mm-hmm.
from that, and you'd get back on that horse, and I did, ultimately perseverance and grit will pay off.
It will.
And
And I want to point out too that you said success. I'm going to come back to what success should be and what it's going to look like. And you said one thing in particular, and that is you quit making it about you. And I think that is probably the best lesson a person can learn. And as a coach, and look, we're going to use this as a theme throughout our conversation here today. Coaches only see success when their team is successful. A coach could go out and they can think to themselves, I taught them all these drills. They're able to perform them flawlessly in practice. We lose every single game, but I'm still a great coach. No. Did your players grow? Did they become better? Did they gel as a team? Did you win as a team? Did you lose as a team? That's what coaching's about, is the unity that you can bring together. And leadership, when it is seen through that lens, you actually have a lot better chance of success, one, but then two, you recognize that the goal and the dream and the idea is much bigger than you, and that keeps you driven. Whenever you went after the trucking business, and I'm just doing backstories here, so flow with me.
Sure.
When you go to the trucking business and you say that you recognize that this was about you and you failed, did you have an aha moment during that failure moment where you said to yourself, I need to do something that's bigger than just Jim? Or was that another life lesson about, Mel, I failed because these things weren't in place? But when did you connect the dot that you needed something bigger than just you?
Yeah, it was years later
Okay.
before I started connecting the dots, and it's that it wasn't about me. So I grew up in the in marketing, okay,
Hmm.
I grew up with the idea of you got to have a competitive advantage. And I don't think about that anymore because I don't think a single competitive advantage works. And if you have a single competitive advantage, it's too easy to be knocked off. Uh, and I tell people, if you have a single competitive advantage, it's like having a castle with one wall. Oh yeah, you got to defend the air, but on the sides and in the back, here they come. And especially with the advent of technology, you talked about AI. Holy cow! Let's say you're competitive advantage. Well, I've got lower costs than anybody else. Well, with AI, you can now take costs out, especially in the back office.
Hmm.
And if you didn't think of that, you're going to be out of business before you know it. So it was years down the line before I really started thinking about what is it that I can do that's different that will appeal to a buyer. And but I hadn't put the whole formula together yet. But
Hmm.
I didn't think about me. I said, okay, what is it now that I can do that's different that is going to attract a buyer because this is going to be better for them than the alternative that they're using today.
Hmm.
And then, but again, I was kind of thinking single-mindedly competitive advantage because that's how I grew up.
Hmm.
But now I say no, a single competitive advantage isn't near enough. And you've got to constantly be working and improving upon it. Because if you don't, technology is going to come along and give somebody else the opportunity to beat you at whatever you think you excelled at the time.
That's so true. Sustainability is the foundation of it itself has to be the product is bigger than you and it's for some other people. I want to use somebody that's everybody should know, Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. His example, I've read so many of his books. His example to success was never about being a billion-dollar corporation. It was about providing a very high quality product and do it with the most care and love that you could give from a food service industry perspective. And that was great service. Always have great service. If you have great service, you have a better than average product that will be sustainable. And that's where he started. And I love the philosophy too. He never wanted to grow bigger than he could keep the quality. The quantity was never as important as the quality of the product. And so he grew slowly that way. And to this day, I mean, I don't know where he ranks among all the great fast food chains, but he's in the top 10 easy all the time. And it comes down to the service and the product for the people. And you can take that philosophy and you can blend that to everything you do, and entrepreneurs in particular. And for myself, whenever I started doing the motivational speaking thing, I'm just using me as a little bit of an example in the coaching realm. I had coached sports my whole life. And the whole point of a coach was to put in an atmosphere and an environment where my players could be successful. I didn't want to set them up to fail. You always wanted to set them up for success, which might mean that, for me, it's not my ideal situation. I wanted to maybe win every game, but I also knew that there were certain players that needed to grow. So I would play them in certain positions, and that was the place they needed to be. So you make those sacrifices because you see the bigger picture at play. And whenever I started to blend that into my teaching, the students said, hey, you need to be a motivational speaker. I knew going into it, Jim, that if I became a motivational speaker and then eventually a podcaster, that if I made it about me, it was going to definitely be doomed to fail. I needed to make it about us. And if you notice in my title, it's Motivate with Coach Camp, because the idea was that we are always going to be stronger together. So when you come out of the trucking industry and now you're diving into the next thing, what are some of these lessons you've learned and when does it start to blend to, I need to make this more about everyone else and how I can please them, but do it from a passionate perspective, because you got to be passionate about what you do.
Absolutely. So my third enterprise was during the .com era. I created a third party logistics company, leveraging the internet for my transportation management technology. And I specifically concentrated in the less than truckload sector because it's very complex, and I tried to make it a lot easier. Shipping in the pallet quantities, which is LTL, the pricing schemes are you don't know what you're spending in advance of what you're spending, you don't know transit times. And I tried to make that much, much simpler, and I succeeded. And so my thought process was, how can I make this simpler and easier and even more price competitive for the customers? And so that's what I was all about. And that was my focus. It wasn't about getting rich, making money, but where I really spent a lot of my brain power was, now I have a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I had 40 people, but I didn't look at it as 40 people. I have 40 families.
Mm.
Okay. And I told them, one of the best compliments you could pay me is someday for you to start your own company because of something you learned, or maybe you became inspired by the experience we're trying to provide to others. And I actually had a couple who, down the road did start their own companies, and I love that.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about keeping people. I wanted them to grow, but it was a lot of pressure on me because it's the first experience I ever had where I had, many, many families who were dependent upon the success of the enterprise. But my focus then was on the customer, being unique, being different, being simpler and easier than the alternatives they were facing.
Yeah.
That's when the lessons really started.
When you take your passion and you tie that to your purpose, the paycheck should be a byproduct. I tell that to my students all the time. I teach paramedic school. Okay, so if you're in paramedic school because you're looking for fame or you're looking for some kind of monetary payoff, you're in the wrong business, right? The whole point of being a good paramedic is being able to take care of somebody in their worst situation in life. And that takes mental preparation, that takes physical preparation, and that takes the right kind of mindset. So for me, using my life lessons to be able to instill that in them, the soft skills that are needed. I could teach anybody how to turn a wrench, so to speak, but there is something about that human element that you have to have, and that comes from your passion. So you just gave a great example of how not only was this something that was growing for yourself, but you recognize the full brevity of it by having other people count on you. Did you have some major influences? Because this is where I'm going with this. You are now an influence to people. You're writing books. You're trying to share your message because you want other people to be successful. Did you have some people at this point in your life that had influenced you or had given you some examples of something that you could grow yourself could grow from?
Yeah, I mentioned that mentor who told me, "Hey, before you can succeed, you must have failed."
Mm-hmm.
And he had built his business from the ground up. It was a technology business, and I really fell in love with his demeanor, his character, his ethics, and his purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer today in not only the company understanding and being able to explain their purpose, but each individual within the company. It's not and I tell my CEOs that I coach, I said, hey, I think you should get away from job descriptions and make it a purpose description. What's the ultimate purpose of that role? So the answer is yes. I did get indoctrinated to some other leaders where I respected. They were very wise, and they built something from scratch. And that's what I always thought, man, that's what I want to be able to do, that because they're impacting so many people. And he wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
It was about, if I can help these others, everything else is going to take care of itself. And I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos. When I started my first, what I call real company, I raised some venture capital. I had all these employees, and I really didn't know what being a leader was all about at the time. But and I personally struggled. And all of a sudden, I have a board of directors I have to report to, and they were the investors. And I'd never done that, but I learned real quickly, you don't take all your issues to them, because then they're going to say, we don't have the right person in the chair.
Mm.
But I've always admired the entrepreneurs who are willing to take the risk, and especially those who are vulnerable, and they know they don't know it all, and they are lifelong learners. They're curious. And those are the people that I just kind of stuck on to just try and learn whatever I can and soak up from them.
Yeah, when you see
And
somebody that's trying to lead by example and they're doing it in a way that they're not trying to act like they have all the answers, those are the people I gravitate toward because you recognize that they're out there trying something new that they could fail at, but along the way they're going to share their pearls of wisdom, if you will. And if you're paying attention to that, you're going to be able to grow from that without having to make all the mistakes, which it sounds like to a point that's kind of what you were kind of picking up on along the way with some of the people that were mentoring you.
yeah, it's funny. And I tell people this. When I went to school, when I went to college, I don't remember taking a leadership course.
Mm.
How do you how do you inspire people? Because at the end of the day, and I tell my leaders this, you're in the people business. You have employees, they're people. You have vendors who are people, and guess what? You have customers, they're people. And you need to figure out how to inspire them. Well, I never took a course.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden now I start this company and I'm the leader. I didn't have any idea how to inspire people, how to manage them at all. And it's hard. I made a lot of mistakes that way. And and that's why I'm so passionate now about helping other leaders, with maybe what they might consider soft skills, but those soft skills are
They play
are the
big.
difference maker.
Yeah, they play big, right? Yeah.
Oh, they're the whole thing, man. They're the whole thing in my opinion.
You said something that I thought was interesting too. So Steve Jobs, he has a famous quote where he said, and I hope I don't mess the quote totally up. I don't think it will. He said, "We don't hire smart people so we can tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what needs to be done." And there's so much truth to that. Building your team around you, it's important that you have players with different talents, if you will. Still using the coaching theme. If you have players with different talents, you can do a lot more. If everybody has the same talent, we're only going in one direction. And so for me, I like to use this. So I want to get your take on it because leadership is massive. I've put on a leadership show here in town. I rented out a theater. We did a whole thing about leadership. I speak to high schools and colleges all the time. I have one coming up with the Chamber of Commerce here in my town where I'm going to speak to a bunch of young leaders because I feel like if a person wraps their head around some ingredients, I like to think of the ingredient model that you need to put into uh your blend, and everybody has a different blend, a different flavor, but these ingredients are so important. It's like I used an example not long ago at a high school where I talked about making a brownie, and there's a lot of different ingredients you can put into a brownie, but there's some core ingredients you got to have if you even want to call it a brownie. And so that's kind of where I am with leadership. And so I'm going to give you my rapid small list of what I think are core ingredients for great leaders, and I'd love to get your take on it. I have adaptability, intentionality, willing to fail, prioritization, passion and purpose. And the last one, and this is the one that I think is most important for every human being on earth to be successful at anything, self-discipline. I'd love to get your take on anything that you got or what you would make your ingredient model look like.
I would pick a lot of those. I would add curiosity as one of the key ingredients. Um, because you gotta, if you're gonna be a great leader, um, you have got to get input from others around you. You don't, if you think you know it all, I got bad news for you. You don't.
That's right.
I got a great story that one of my CEOs, he came to work as the president for this private equity backed company. They hadn't made money in 6 years, and it's a machine shop, aerospace manufacturing. He'd never been in a machine shop in his life. So here he walks in, 6 years of loss after loss after loss. And what he did, he said, well, I don't know all the problems and I don't know how to run a machine shop, but I've got people here who've been here 25, 30 years. I'll bet they do know.
Hmm.
So he did one-on-ones with each one. What is it we should be doing? And and he got so much wisdom, and then they felt important because they're making an impact. I made this suggestion. The leader followed up on it. They did it. Look, it's working. I now have more purpose. So I think curiosity, care is, you know, we're all people.
Mhm.
And I used to say this in my very first company. I said, listen, there's 24 hours in a day, and you're probably only at work, hopefully 8, maybe 10 hours,
Right.
a small percentage of your total day. So have fun, but get to know the people around you. What's going on in their life? Um, and what is their dream? And how can you, the leader, help them fulfill their dream? How can they, in turn, help you, the leader, fulfill your dream? So I think all of the things you said, the failure one caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
But I get it because I've
Yeah.
been there. So I think that the care, the curiosity are two additional ingredients I'd add to your list.
When you go after anything too, we already talked about how AI is causing the game to change. Adaptability, and I heard you speak on another one of your podcasts about the importance of adaptability. And what was funny about that is when I heard you say that. So I've put out a bunch of small motivational videos on my Facebook and stuff over the years, YouTube. And one of the speeches I gave, because a person asked me, so well, what would you want seniors to know that are about to graduate high school? And the thing I told the speech I gave was you got to be adaptable because you're going to have a great idea about what you want to do in life. And the goal can always stay the same. But what will happen a lot of times is the path has to change. And I use the example again back to coaching of a football team. Every time they get the ball on offense, the goal is to score a touchdown. The goal is always score a touchdown, but they don't always score a touchdown on that time. So they have to punt. They have to do other things to try to get themselves in a better position to score the touchdown. I said, and that's how life has to be approached. So whenever you go after something, the goal can stay the same, but how you get there may have to change multiple times. So how could you speak to that in the realm of business minded adaptability?
You gotta be adaptable. I mean, nobody expected a pandemic back in 2020. You have to adapt. You have to pivot. Yeah, we might have expected tariffs, and now most business leaders are going, okay, how do I adapt
Mm.
now to these tariffs? How do I adapt to quiet quitting? And one thing we talk a lot about with my leaders is you're now managing 6 generations.
Oh, that's a
Well,
good
guess
point.
what? I'm a boomer, and I joke about it, but it's not too far off. I said, hey, I'm a boomer. I grew up in the carrot and stick era, and I don't remember too much about the carrot. I do remember the stick.
Right.
Well, Gen Z and millennials, they are motivated in different ways than me as a boomer. And as a leader, you have to adapt
Mm.
to that.
Yeah.
Or guess what? You're going to have constant turnover. It's going to be chaos if you don't know how to manage and inspire those kind of. So you've got the outside influences and things you cannot control. But then you've got things like multi generations and culture and all the things that you really can control.
Mhm.
But it takes adaptability. And you mentioned there, you mentioned Chris that AI. Now I tell my leaders in my group, hey, y'all see this gray hair? I was around in 1995 when this thing called the World Wide Web came
Yeah.
out, and there were people back then. Oh, it's a fad, never going to last. Well, guess what? It wasn't a fad. It did last. AI is exactly the same thing. Now, I can't tell you how you should be using AI in your organization, your
Mhm.
company, but you need to be curious. You need to be learning. You need to be talking to your peers. You need to be reading, studying, and figure it out because if you don't, your competitors will, and they're going to have an advantage on you. That's how technology works. So that curiosity is really, really key.
Absolutely. And honestly, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to have that to start with because that's where the vision comes from, the idea of anything. And then, of course, once you have the idea, it takes having action. So I love picking your brain on this stuff. Let's talk real quick about your first book, No Hassle. So tell me about the No Hassle, how that came about, and what's the overall concept of that.
Okay, so the first book was The Unconventional Thinking
Oh, that
about
was the first one. My
yeah.
bad.
No problem. The second book was called Stop the Hassle.
Mhm.
And so I have this belief that we buyers, we have four general criteria by which we make a decision on what we're going to buy and from whom. And number one is convenience. We
Mm.
want to save time. We want to save effort. We want simple. We want easy. We don't want our lives to be more complex. So if all things were equal, but one offering was more convenient, it was going to save me time, I'm going to choose that. Number two is price. Don't have to be the lowest price, but you got to be competitive. But more importantly, in my mind, is pricing transparency.
Mm.
We buyers don't like to make a purchase without knowing exactly what we're going to be spending in advance. We don't. That's why the airlines and they're, oh, you didn't know about that $200 fee. Or when we
Yeah.
go into a hospital, we don't know, or a doctor, we know the attorney's charging us 400 an hour, but we never know how many hours. We don't like that experience. So transparency is really, really important. Third is user experience, which is a much broader category. But as a buyer, I want to be treated like I'm the only customer they have, even though they might have millions or thousands. I want answers to my questions. If it's a retail, I want cleanliness, bright light, safety. I want the shelves stocked. I want adequate people helping. That all creates a great experience. Then the fourth is trust.
Mm.
When I'm about to buy something, I have a perception in my head of what I'm going to get. It's just if I drive through and I'm getting coffee, my expectation it better be hot.
Mm.
Okay, it's a bad experience if it's warm. But how do I trust somebody that I have not done business with before? Well, are there guarantees? Are there warranties? Are there testimonials, referrals? How long have they been in business? Do they specialize in something? And so that gives me the ability to trust that I'm going to get what I expect or what they promise. So all four: convenience, price, user experience, and trust. If a seller is delivering on all four of those, I really don't have an excuse not to buy from them. But the problem is most companies have a conscious trade-off. Well, if I'm going to make it convenient for you,
It'll
you're going to
cost
have
you.
to pay up. Or
Yeah.
if I'm going to give you this great experience, you're going to pay up. Or if I'm going to give you this low price, sorry, the shelves aren't going to be stocked, and I can give you company examples. And
Hmm.
so now I have an excuse not to use you. So in my first book, I believe that Amazon, Netflix, and Uber are dominant because they practice that formula.
Hmm.
And most companies will have a conscious and I even though Walmart's a behemoth and a great company, I think they lack in the user experience. Hope you like checking yourself out.
Yeah.
It's not as
I'm
clean and
looking
well
for my
lit maybe
W
as
two all the time.
Target.
Yeah.
Jiffy Lube, they're going to get you convenience, but they're going to charge you a lot more than what you can get your oil change at Walmart, et cetera. So I have these excuses. And when you do that, I believe we all have our personal value system. Mine personally is convenience. If somebody can save me time, I'm going that direction.
Hmm.
I have a sister-in-law, lives in a town of about 15,000, a Walmart 2 grocery store. She cuts coupons, goes to every store for their sales, takes her a couple hours. She saves 20, 25 bucks. I'm not doing that. Too much time,
Hmm.
right? It's not, so my personal value system is different than hers. So when you have a trade-off, a conscious trade-off, I'm trading off my price for experience. If that doesn't hit my personal value system, I'm going elsewhere. So I preach in my Stop the Hassle. If I'm not getting convenience, that's a hassle. If I'm not getting the price and it's not transparent, that's a hassle. If I'm not getting the user experience, that's a hassle. If I can't trust you, if there's not a warranty, free returns or guarantees or whatever, that becomes a hassle for me. So pay attention to what we buyers want and try and match as much of that as you possibly can.
Yeah. I
So
like
that's what Stop the Hassle's about.
I like how you blended though the good, the bad, and the ugly, because the truth is a lot of times we can learn a lot and maybe even more from how someone's doing it wrong, whatever that thing is in life. I know personally growing up as a kid playing sports, I cherish the coaches that invested in the players. And you pick up on that even when you're young. And when you get older, of course, now things really, you look back and you can really see the coaches that had the wrong place, the wrong heart, the wrong drive. You learn from that too. And you want to blend that when you get older. Now I'll become a coach. I wanted to take all those words, those perils of wisdom from the coaches that I loved, that I knew invested in for the right reasons. And then the ones that were not so great, I wanted to make sure I stayed away from that. So as a business owner, you could do both all the time. Pay attention to any business and see how they're functioning, see where they're failing and see where they're succeeding, and always try to draw to the better part of things, the success part of things. I will say this, when it comes to doing anything and you've never done it, there's going to be learning curves. So this is, I'm kind of speaking to the new entrepreneurs. You can take all these tenets of wisdom that you've put out in your books, what you go around and you share with people if you're doing a conference or any other kind of speaking event, and people take notes. And I've done this. But how it plays for you and how you apply that is always going to be individualized. And then whatever your product is in the sense of entrepreneurship, all of those things are relative and they matter and they all will be successful, but you've got to understand the path that works for you. So when you look at a broad spectrum, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur trying a business? What would you say is like, if you just do this, the core, start with this idea, and then slowly apply all these other areas that are going to work for you? What do you think is like the foundation?
Again, my advice is don't start a restaurant because you like to cook. Don't start a landscaping company because you love working with your hands in dirt. Find a business or an industry where they lack the convenience factor, or their price too high, or their experience it is not great, or I can't trust them. They don't live up to their own promise. If you can find an opening, there will be buyers who say, oh yeah, I'm now going to be able to get this that I wasn't able to get before. And you don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert in that industry. Remember, my president who got the machine shop. He'd never been in a machine shop before. What did he do? He relied on his people who knew the industry to tell him, here's what we should be doing. And so my advice is, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, look at those four major criteria, find an industry or a business that's fallen down on that. That's what, look at Uber. Uber goes, oh man, this cab industry is awful.
Yeah.
And they hit it on all aspects of that. Amazon goes, heck, people don't want it. Now with the internet, you don't have to go to the store. You can do it from your couch. And we're going to offer these guarantees and this great experience and these reviews. And we're a marketplace. So the vendors are really competing with themselves for pricing. So those are the kind of elements I would look for if I'm an entrepreneur. The second piece of advice, I always get asked this: what's your one piece of advice you would tell an entrepreneur? Because I've been there. I said, you're going to write down the best plan and you're going to have the best forecast. And well, guess what? Things happen. So plan on it taking longer. Plan on it being much harder than you ever anticipated. But if you know that going in, you'll go, oh yeah, hey, here's that bump in the road that I didn't really forecast, but I knew something was going to happen, but I'm going to stick with it and I'm going to overcome that. So if you know that the best plans and the best amount of time not going to happen, you're going to more aptly hang in there. And it's too easy to say, well, gosh, I said we were going to do $1 million in the first 2 years, and here I am at 200,000.
Yeah.
Oh crap! Hey, hang in there. Don't just quit because you didn't hit your plan.
Figure out what it is you were doing right to get to the 200,000. No, it's funny you mentioned that, and there's just so many aspects of life that happens to me. Where I have a small farm, horse, cows, things like that, and there'll be a breach in the fence, and the horse is out. And I will think to myself, well, this will take about 30 minutes. 2 hours later, I'm still working on stuff. And I'm like, see, I need to quit putting a timeline. I know the fence will get fixed. I've just got to keep figuring out how to get this thing done. But when you put that time crunch on you, that could also make you feel desperate and like maybe you're wasting your time and you should just give up. And obviously that's not it because you should be learning lessons. Just a little fun thing. I don't know if you know about this. Have you ever heard of the streaming TV show called The Blocks? It's actually in Kansas City.
It's called The Block.
Blocks, Blox, and the host of it is Wes Bregman. He's been on several reality TV shows and stuff, and he put together this entrepreneur competition show. I was on that on season 13. And the show actually is taped and done in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the reason why is because he's just a bigger venue in that. He started out in Kansas City, but then he moved the show to Tulsa. And the funny thing was I showed up there as a new entrepreneur, brand spanking new at Motivate with Coach Camp, trying to figure out stuff, don't know what I'm doing, don't know anything about the business side of things. I know the product. That was another thing. I know my product. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. But how do you make it a business? I had no clue whatsoever. I stepped into the arena with 113 other businesses competing for a cash prize, and they throw things at you all day long. And it was like it was business questions, and it was business aspects and thoughts, and how do you build this model for this? And I had no idea about any of it. But you want to know what I took away from that experience, which I, by the way, won nothing. It's fine, but I did win something. I won education. I won the opportunity to speak to 100 and something other people trying to make their business work. And you know what I found? There's a common thread. There were common threads, and that's the mindset, the grit, the grind, the ability to fail and get back up, the ability to constantly keep your eyes on the prize, realize that there is a pathway. Maybe you're not taking the right one, to reset, retool, go back after it again. And the experience that I had actually reminded me of my childhood whenever I used to play video games, Jim. How many times do you think I ever started a brand new video game when I was a little kid and beat the whole game, start to finish? Never on the first try. I had to keep hitting reset and play again and play again. And I said, that is the story here for entrepreneurs in life. If you have a passion for that thing, whatever that thing is, whatever that business is you want to start, you got to have it here first. And as long as you have it here and you're willing to keep going and keep trying and keep asking questions, and that's that curious part. Find somebody that's doing it well, see what they're doing, but then the bigger part, and this is where I'm going to next with you and the purpose. You've written 2 books. Now you're into leadership. When we spoke on the phone and you said, I don't know if you want me to tell your age, but you told me how old you were. And you said, I wish I would have known this when I was in my 30s and 40s. Yeah. And it took you all these years to get there, but now you're sharing these lessons for hopefully other people to learn, and they don't have to take that long to get there. That's called the purpose. Now you're fulfilling your purpose because it takes time sometimes to learn stuff. But when you start to give back, that's your purpose. You're starting to now show that I've had all these years experience. I want you to learn from it. So when you get to my age, you're even better than I am. Tell me what that's been like now that you have started this journey in your life, being able to go around and speak to different groups about leadership.
So I'll give you a quick story. I started my last company 8 years ago, and shortly after I started that, my wife retired. And ever since she retired, she starts poking me. Hey, remember all those things we're going to go do in our golden years, and you're still grinding away. Yeah. And I'd always told her my idea of retirement was doing something I'd love to do and controlling my schedule, not being, quote, in the grind. But anyway, I have to do something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she kept poking long enough, hard enough that I did retire for 3 months, and I flunked because there's no purpose in pickleball, golf, and tennis. And I see too many people retire, and a year or two later, they're gone, right? Yeah. And fortunately, I got the call, from Visage to lead a group. And after 42 years in business, starting companies and all kinds of different challenges, experience, wins, this is the best thing I've ever done. Helping others. And I tell them, if I can do anything to prevent you from experiencing some of the bad parts I went through, that's just a home run for me. It really gives me purpose. And I don't know it all. I'm not a consultant. It's my job, and you know this, Coach, is I want to extract it from them,
Hmm.
because when it becomes their idea, then they will go do that versus, oh yeah, here's what you should do. No, it's, let's talk about that. What are the positives, negatives? But it is absolutely the best thing I've ever done. It gives me more purpose. But I'm also a business nerd. I love to learn about how all these businesses work. Like you were
Hmm.
in with 100 others,
Yeah,
and you probably learned a ton, right?
so much. This class was in session every minute.
Yeah, and so I love to learn that. But I don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. and in a cold sweat because I got this big problem. I just read this line yesterday that said the human brain focuses on problems. It just automatically diverts. That's where the focus is, and the whole point of it was you've got to take time off to refresh, to
Hmm.
recalibrate, and re-energize yourself. So go fishing, go and I did that when I had my first real company in the 40 employee. I was on 24/7, 365 up here,
Hmm.
and and I finally had to find a diversion just so I could refresh for a moment. Because if you sit there, it'll grind away at you. It'll impact your personal life. It'll impact you the wrong way.
Yeah.
So surround yourself with the right talent, but force yourself into a work-life balance. That's another thing that's important.
Balance is so key. I like to use the analogy of salt. I said a lot of people like salt on their egg, but nobody's going to take the top off and dump the whole thing and think that tastes good. You got to have balance to everything you do in life, and that separation from work, business, and the stress that does come with that, even if it's a good stress. Because let's face it, if you're a person that is that kind of minded, you like challenges. That's why you get into entrepreneurship because you do like the challenge. You like to overcome the challenge, whatever that is. And for me, with my students, even one of the things that I love to do is express to them the challenges that they're going to face, but then share with them my failures in a very vulnerable way. And what I found is that connects with people too. They recognize that your heart is there and that you're looking out for them and you want the best for them. 'Cause you're not trying to pretend to be this amazing individual that has been so successful your whole life. You never had to. No, I want them to understand that all the way through all my career, I had setbacks. I had moments where I look back and I'm like, man, I really wish I would have done this or that on a call. And that's what I try to instill in them. And with business in general, it has to be the same way. And when you can find somebody that wants to give you that, like yourself, sir, that's been through the road, you've been in the fire, you've come out the other side, you get somebody young and they're hungry and they want to learn, and you can share those moments with them, that's going to be impactful. And just like you said, the old ripple effect situation where you said that to be able to see someone grow and know that you had some piece of that, that is the true prize in life. That is
It is.
so that is so wonderful. I shared this with some kids not long ago. They were asking me about being a teacher and stuff, and they were curious about the job and the money. And I said, well, that's the beauty of life. Work hard when you're young, learn a ton, and when you get older, money suddenly doesn't matter. And for me, it's not that I don't need money. Everybody has to have money to survive. So, but when you can choose to do something rather than feel like you have to do something, that, my friend, is success in life. That's when you know you've been successful, that you've done the things in life you needed to do, and now you get to do absolutely what you want to do, where your heart is, and you understand the impact for others. So I'll tell you what, you and I, we could talk all day on this kind of stuff. Coaching is easy for me because that's what I've always done. But when you blend that to the idea of business and functionality, look, there's no easy path to get through stuff that's never been done. If you've never challenged yourself, you've never been down a certain road, you're going to have hiccups. It's all about getting back up and moving forward again. So using that as one of our last points, talking points here, sir. I'm big on self-discipline. As we mentioned earlier in the show, I think that's probably one of the biggest attributes a person has to have. If you want to save money, you got to be disciplined. If you want to lose weight, you got to be disciplined. You could put this in any aspect in life. I'm asking you because I'm going to consider you my guru, sir. What what do you do for to build self-discipline in the world of business? For me, I will tell you this. One thing I've done is I have dedicated to running 2 miles every single day, no matter what. I will run further than that, but I run at least 2 miles every day, every day. And I've done this for almost 4 years now without missing a single day because it forces me to be intentional. It forces self-discipline. I have to wake up. I have to think to myself, today I got to get my two in. I did two before I came up here. So that's my area where I can just like focus in. I'm like, I'm going to get that done. If I can do that, what else can I do today? Sir, what would you say to people that need to have some way to build self-discipline? Because that's something that's probably one of the biggest challenges most people face.
I agree. It becomes a confidence to me. I've got this discipline. I'm able to do this. I may not be the best at it, but I have the discipline to do it, which gives me the confidence
Hmm.
to continue that. The one thing I did, we talked about that diversion at the age of 46, and when I'm 46, man, I'm an old dude. I'm about to die. I picked up and started learning the banjo, and I self-taught myself that, and I still play today. And so it takes a lot of discipline to learn to play a musical
Hmm.
instrument, and it's not at all related to work, but that ability to say, and I don't know how to read music, and I go, you know what? I can teach myself this. I can buy enough books, watch enough videos. I'll go to training. And then I'll just practice, 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 practice. But I still do that today. So congratulations on running. I can't do that anymore because of my knees. But I love the thought of, and I never thought of it that way, but having something, and especially outside of work, where you're building the discipline that gives you the confidence, that's going to translate into your business and personal life, I believe.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I guess to a point, I've kind of thought that, but I never put that into the concept of you need the confidence, and that's how you instill confidence is through achieving self-discipline. And the point of self-discipline is holding yourself accountable. And that's so easy for a person to not do that if no one's looking and no one seems to care. If I didn't run tomorrow, Jim, nobody's going to know but me. Well, maybe my
That's
wife, because she's like, did you do your two? Because she does keep me accountable. It is good to have an accountability partner, by the way, in life. That does help keep you self-disciplined as well. You need an accountability partner. But when it comes to doing something, and it doesn't have to be running, I would challenge everyone out there. Find something that requires you to focus in on once a day for a period of time, whatever that time is, and do that every single day without fail. It actually becomes a point where you feel anxiety and panic if that thing hasn't happened. It's true. We've traveled before and we will have been on the road all day. And I'm like trying to find a spot to get out and do a quick 2 miles somewhere. I mean, like literally at an airport, I'm running down the pathway and I'm just going back and forth with my Fit Pro, and I'm just like looking at it. And I'm like, I'm gonna get the two. I'm gonna get the two. Sometimes you got to adjust. You got to be adaptable. The goal stays the same. The pathway's different. It's not always on a street or a treadmill. You go out, you get your 2 miles, and when you're done at the end of the day, you know you kept yourself accountable. You stayed disciplined, and you're moving forward. And whatever that thing is in life can always be achievable. And I like the fact that you said confidence because I didn't really think about it that way, but that is what I'm doing. I'm staying confident because I know I can do that, and I can force myself to do it when I don't
which
want to
means
do
you
it.
know you can do other things.
That's it. That is the
So,
bottom line. Jim, I
yeah.
know you have got big things on your plate. Share with us the last things here. What do you got coming up? What is next for Jim? And any advice you want to give my listeners?
Yeah, what's next for me? What I'm trying to do, I get the privilege of uh, listening to world-class speakers once a month. They come in and talk to my group of CEOs. And I'm trying to compile that all now in a way that I can share with others. And one of the things, I'm not going to name names, but it's interesting. I have CEOs who don't quite understand their role. And so I'm putting together kind of a roadmap. Well, here's what a CEO does. And I keep telling them, I want you to be the orchestra leader. I don't want you playing tuba. I don't want you playing violin. You need to have those in your band. You need to be the orchestra leader.
Hmm.
And you might have been a CFO or a COO in your past. You've gotta delegate that and trust that. But here's your role, and it's all about culture, strategy, um, learning new things, developing people, coaching. That's your role now, and so that what I'm trying to do is compile all this knowledge I'm learning today, so that if I get a new member into my group, I can go here. I want you to catch up with everybody else here, and so that's kind of what I'm slowly working on.
Well, I've got news for you. When you set out to do anything in life, sometimes it's hard to see the progress that's being done. It's just like growing up when you're a kid. You don't notice that you're getting taller. And then all of a sudden, one day you look at a picture and you're like, dang, I've grown a foot. I mean, life is that way. You have to trust the process and keep going and keep taking one step at a time. Just knowing what little I do know about you already, sir, I know you're having a huge impact out there. And the fact that you're doing it on a scale where those people are going to influence so many other folks, and your legacy, and that's what we all try to hope to build toward, is a legacy is going to be felt for years and years, well beyond our days. I say this all the time to my students. I say, you're young, you're in class, the world seems big and you've got all the time in the world, but it goes by so quick. I can tell you because I used to be you, and that's what happens, and life will go by like that. So don't waste it. Don't waste the day. Stand up and get moving forward, and know that what you're doing today does matter tomorrow, and it impacts more than just you. It's going to impact everyone else around you. So lead by example. Continue to be a leader, sir. Go out there, do the big things. And by the way, if your CEOs ever need a motivational speaker that talks a lot and has a lot of energy, Coach Camp I'm always on the go. I've got a speech this coming Friday. I'm doing a keynote at one of the colleges, and I am going to be talking about tackling life. That is going to be the premise of this. You have achieved something. You've gotten a degree. Congratulations. That's a chapter. Time to write the next chapter. Keep going.
Yeah, your lessons are only going to start now. Hey, Coach, you know how old I am. I don't know how old you are, but you are wise. You are wise beyond your years.
Because I listen to guys that been there, done that.
Yeah. So thank you for what you do, man. Keep preaching. Keep the word out there, because we got to have leaders.
Absolutely.
Coming from the young.
That's absolutely correct, sir. Hey, I'll be 52 this month. So I say I'm 52, but I feel prorated at about 110. I've lived some tough physical days of my life playing sports, but hey, I'm hanging in there best I can. Jim, thank you. I'm so glad we got to meet. I look forward to keeping up with you and, looking to see what big things are going to happen. And when I'm in Kansas City to see a Royals game, I'll holler at you.
Please do. Or a Chiefs game.
Or a Chiefs game, absolutely. Yeah, that's no doubt about that. They're expensive, though. Those tickets have went up since they started winning. I can tell you that much. Yeah. If you're with the winner, you're going to pay for it, too. That's the way it works. But, Jim, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. I know there's people out there that got a lot from it. To my listeners, I want to tell you guys thank you for tuning in each and every week. I love the comments, man. Continue to tune in, share these episodes. Go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com. Subscribe to my YouTube. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape,